Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and I had a subscriber ask a question which I will flip in right here. And this subscriber is a vegan, has been a vegan for years, lifts weights, trains, all of that stuff, says he has good results, which I've seen vegans who do that, so that's not unbelievable. He's concerned at the big growing trend of fruitarianism as an alternative form of veganism that's promoted heavily on YouTube, and what do I think about that? So, let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, see if I can scale my crafting up a little bit, and let's talk about that. Alright, I want to state up front, occasionally I do poke some fun at vegans, but the truth is I don't have a problem with veganism. People who choose to be a vegan, they choose to follow that type of diet, and I hate it when they call it a lifestyle. That's not really a lifestyle, guys, it's just what you choose to eat. And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with that. They choose to do that for their own ethical reasons or whatever. I'm okay with that. That's people's personal ethics. I only have an issue with it when they try to publicly proclaim that it is somehow healthier than people who eat a balanced omnivorous diet, because it's not. The data doesn't suggest that it is. And there are plenty of people, in fact most of the people who've lived to be over 100 years old eat meat. Doesn't mean they sit around eating pounds of meat every day. Doesn't mean they sit around eating McDonald's. But they eat meat. Sorry, it just doesn't add up. The fact that completely avoiding animal products is somehow superior, I got a problem with them claiming that, because it's just not true. Eating these things in moderation, probably a good idea. But everything should be eaten in moderation. There's nothing that should be eaten to excess. Even water in excess will kill you. And, I mean, truth be told, most vegans still eat healthier than people who sit around eating McDonald's all day. So, would I consider that more of a fitness-oriented diet than someone who eats McDonald's and Taco Bell? Obviously. I think that goes without question. But here's the thing. When it comes to this fruitarian thing, here's the problem. You already have a diet that's based upon excluding two entire food groups. Two major food groups that are healthy and are nutritious, and they can argue all day long, and I've heard some of them try to claim things like meat has the nutritional value of dirt. I don't even think of it as food, and I'm sorry, but that's complete bullshit. Every nutritionist and registered dietitian in the world will disagree with you. It contains protein, fatty acids, and tons of different vitamins and minerals. That has nutritional value, all right? Meat has nutritional value. To deny that is profound ignorance, and that's all that is. But you have a diet already based upon excluding a couple of major food groups. Excluding major healthy food groups in large amounts isn't always a wise idea. All right, it isn't always a wise idea. That's one of the biggest things leveled at ketogenic diets. So we've got the other extreme. We're taking out entire categories of healthy foods, grains, fruit, all of that stuff. Things that even the vegans would say, no, those are healthy, that's fine. So you have diets that remove entire food groups. Well, veganism is already based on that. Well, then they're taking that and then reducing it down even further. And then they're going to remove other extremely healthy, nutrient-dense food groups. You guys see where this is going? You see the problem with this? When you start taking diets and you start removing 3, 4, 5 different types of foods, like entire categories of foods, because if you're going to be a fruitarian and eat only fruit, you're asking for dietary imbalances. I'm sorry, you're asking for dietary imbalances. We're going to get to the point to where fruits, as a general rule, compared to many other plant-based foods out there, simply lack a lot of the nutrients. There are plenty of vitamins, some minerals, but a lot of vitamins that you're not going to get sufficient amounts of. Fruits, compared to many other plant foods, are much lower in proteins. They're much lower in essential fatty acids. The only fruit I can think of that would actually have sufficient essential fatty acids and protein per calorie would be cantaloupe. Like, that's your bare minimum. That's the only fruit I can think of off the top of my head. This nutrition profile is sufficient to meet, if it were to be a major source of your calories, like something like 50% or more of your calories, that would be okay in those things, because actually cantaloupe is decently high in protein, believe it or not. For a fruit, it's pretty high. And I mean, when I say pretty high, I think there's something like 7 grams of protein in a 300-calorie cantaloupe. So for fruit, that's actually pretty high. And it actually has a measurable amount of omega-3 fatty acids in it. But most fruits are much, much lower in protein and things per calorie. But even then, you've got to look at that and say, okay, so if you ate 2,100 calories of that, that's about 50 grams of protein a day. That'll hit RDA, but it's not going to be sufficient for an athlete. Not going to be sufficient for an athlete. Then again, an athlete's probably going to need a lot more of that. But I mean, the thing is, no one's going to sit around eating nothing but cantaloupes all day. So the issues you run into, you have the potential for dietary imbalance, the potential for dietary deficiency eating nothing but fruit. So essential fatty acids, amino acids, things like that. You have the potential for deficiency. The same thing with vitamins and minerals. You're not getting a varied enough diet. You're not getting a wide enough variety of nutrients on a fruitarian diet. The other big thing, everything that you're consuming is a simple sugar. You're getting most of your calories at this point from simple sugars. And yes, I understand they aren't as bad as they are from refined sources. But you're still getting a very large amount of fructose. You're still not getting that much fiber. I mean, fruit has some fiber in it, and that's one of the big redeeming factors in it. The fiber in fruit does offset some of the potential negatives from all the sugars in it, all the fructose in it. All right, fiber can help with that. But when your diet consists entirely of fruit, you are getting a questionable amount of fiber in. You have other potential dietary deficiencies, and everything that you're consuming is high glycemic load. It has a pretty fair amount of fructose in it. This is not a balanced diet. This is not healthy. So when someone says that they're going to eat nothing but fruit, a fruitarian diet, and they want me to say that that's healthy for them, to, particularly if they're athletic and physically active, and if you're not athletic and physically active, how healthy are you really in the long term? But that's an ideal diet? No, absolutely not. We're getting to the point to where we're dealing with so many potential dietary deficiencies on a purely fruit diet that I'm like, I don't think you're much better off than someone who eats McDonald's every day at that point. I'm sorry, but you're not. And if you're doing okay on your blood work, it's probably because you're so absurdly physically active that you're offsetting the negatives of it. Meaning someone who's, say, an endurance athlete who does some resistance training, they might be okay. Because they burn through so many calories that they're offsetting some of the negatives of all the simple carbs that they're consuming. Maybe they're getting more of the protein and everything because they're burning through so many calories that they're consuming an insane amount of calories. But it's not ideal. And I don't understand it. I mean, people who want to do the vegan thing because they think it's healthy, okay, that's fine. They want to do it for ethical reasons, that's also fine. But now they're excluding entire food groups that could give them a far more balanced nutrient profile. Again, same thing. I mean, if they wanted to get enough protein, fruit wouldn't be my first choice as a major calorie source. I'd be looking at things like grains, beans, legumes, things like that. Beans and rice, right? You consume enough beans and rice, you can get enough protein on a vegan diet to be athletic, to gain muscle. But bananas, oranges, apples, I don't think so. It just really sets them up for potential dietary deficiency, and it makes no sense whatsoever. They make this argument too, and I've seen some do this, that, well, fruit is our natural food. No, not for humans, not really. Now, we evolved from fruit-eating herbivores at one time, not herbivores, the word hominids, I'm sorry. Fruit-eating hominids, which were herbivores also, so that wasn't the incorrect term. But the issue you run into there, the fruit that we eat today is not the fruit that they were eating. Furthermore, humans have speciated several times since then. We actually have evolved from cooked omnivores. All right, the species that we came from was cooking tubers, cooking grains, and particularly cooking meat for millions of years before we came around. All right, so to make that jump to say, well, you know, I mean, 50 million years, well, what 50 million, 20 million years before that, you know, we came from fruit-eating apes. But that's not what our ancestors were eating a million years ago. That's not what we developed to eat over time, is not to be eating fruit. And furthermore, the fruit that existed back then is not the fruit that you're eating today. The fruit that you're eating today are selectively bred foods, all right, that have much larger amounts of sugar and fructose in them than any fruit found in nature did back then. We've cultivated these things. You ever look at a natural banana, you slice that open, it's not going to look like something you'd really want to eat. All right, we have selectively bred fruit for many generations to be sweeter and to taste better and to have more calories and stuff in it. But it has come at the expense of it being loaded with a lot more sugar than fruit would have been found with in nature. So people need to remember that. And again, I'm not saying that fruit can't be healthy or part of a balanced diet. But like with anything else, consuming too much of anything is a bad thing. And I don't care whether it's meat or fruit. Consuming too much of anything in excess can become problematic for you. And that's another perfect example. They could say, well, the saturated fat in meat, you're probably right. I don't have a problem with that statement. Too much saturated fat isn't ideal for your body, but neither is too much fructose and too much sugar. And they seem to not be willing to admit to that point. And it's a completely unbalanced diet. It's extremely restrictive. It's extremely unbalanced. And it's based upon this false idea of what's natural. I mean, not only is it appealing to the naturalistic fallacy, the fruit that they're consuming today isn't anything like the fruit that existed millions of years ago. And humans have made a couple of speciations since we were fruitarians. All right, nothing that you would recognize as looking like a human being was a fruitarian back in our evolutionary history. So again, we're getting into some very questionable pseudoscience at that point when they make statements like that. But yeah, I think it's a bad idea. I don't think it's a good idea, and that's coming from someone who's saying, look, veganism is okay as long as you're following a good balanced diet. You're getting enough protein in your diet. You're getting enough essential fatty acids. As long as everything's balanced, a vegan diet's probably okay. I don't have a problem with that. It's definitely better than someone sitting around eating McDonald's. But they need to remember that they are restricting food groups arbitrarily, or it might be based upon their ethics, but from a health perspective, it is arbitrary. And so when they start restricting more and more food groups that have proven health benefits, it could add balance to a diet, it's just absurd. And I think the fruitarian thing is basically batshit crazy. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.